a political whodunit wrapped up in an audio recording, and the latest numbers that could turn the U.S. Senate race into a record setter. Plus, one mask mandate for all, the renewed push as the pandemic gains new strength in Kansas. That's what we're talking about right now on Kansas Week.
Southwest National Bank has proudly served Wichita and its surrounding communities for over 100 years. We are happy to support KPTS, Public Television for Kansas.
An audio recording released Friday sending shockwaves through the Kansas political community. I'm Pilar Pedraza, and this is Kansas Week. We begin today with a story that was still breaking as we started recording the show. The release of an audio recording of four men talking about the false attack ad against Brandon Whipple in last year's mayor's race before a recording of the John Whitmer show. In it, they are planning to blame the chair of the Sedgwick County Republican Party for the ad. Here's a portion of that recording.
Have we said that's untrue? And that's why it's so much better than you being specific. And so you like I've always learned in politics, it's always avoid the truth at all expense, right? And just go on the attack. And so you just say it's not true.
That's one of the political skills that I'm lacking. And it's not that I can't develop it, it's the engineer in me. Because engineers see things in very finite zero.
Black and white.
We do, and it's a bad thing. That's just like when I want to get into some of the discussion topics, I want to get very specific because I want to validate the statement where you're saying, hey, you're just talking way further than you need to.
And here's the other thing
you're talking yourself into a corner.
I get that.
Here's the other thing you need to say, is that you also find it unfortunate because you stuck by and defended Dalton even against your own better judgment. When people came up and told you he was a Democratic plant, you defended him. I think you need to have a personal, just be indignant.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah.
Part of that is
because now it looks like he'll lie because it's personal.
But it's not personal.
No, but
he's just saying that you defended Dalton. Like, this isn't
I
anti-Dalton. This isn't anti-Dalton because he's going to say that you have it out for him. No, Dalton, actually, I've always supported you.
that's a good defense, not a good offense.
But we won't get another defense.
That's the thing. So if we
won't have another defense.
But I'd rather if we're going to attack, attack.
Okay. Okay, fine. Then you just keep saying, unfortunately, this is a pattern of behavior where Dalton will attack the Republicans and support the Democrats.
Now, this audio coming from Matthew Colburn, the filmmaker behind that ad who Whipple first sued. Colburn's name now dropped from that lawsuit. Joining me this week, we have two new guests to the show, though you've seen their faces in some of the stories we've run. On Zoom, we are joined by Denise Johnson, Vice Chair of the Sedgwick County Sedgwick County Democratic Party. And here on set with me, we have Dalton Glasscock, the Chair of the Sedgwick County Republican Party, just named in that story. And just to be clear, Dalton was not brought in because of the story. He has been scheduled for this show for about a month now, but did not let the story chase him away. And Dalton, I'm going to start with you. You're still hearing these things for the first time. This is still developing. As you were listening to that, what are you thinking and feeling?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me. I always enjoyed the conversation and glad to still be here despite the news. This is still very fresh for me. That was the first time that I've heard any of those comments and the first time that I heard that audio. And so I think, the original gut reaction, I'm very disappointed, disheartened, and just saddened by everything I heard. Saddened and angered. And I think, there'll be more discussion coming up, and once I have the chance to review all the audio recordings, I'll probably have a better response as well.
Yeah, definitely hard to come up with a full response when you've only heard bits and pieces so far. And Danielle, this has obviously played a big deal with the Wichita City Council, Mayor Brandon Whipple, who serves on the council with your husband. Where does things go at this point? I mean, this is not an easy thing for the Democratic Party to deal with either.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does hit really close to home. We're all a very tight-knit family and close-knit, right? And you mentioned my spouse who serves District 1 City Councilman. It's all very unfortunate. I don't understand what lengths we need to go to win. And I'm disheartened. I'm disgusted. I know my spouse feels the same way. We really need to take a step back and look at the things that we're doing. Mayor Whipple's family does not deserve that. Any of the things that have come out, it's unfortunate, it's sad, and we'll get into some other things a little bit later, but we really need to look at the ethics and the integrity that we're doing as we move forward. And I certainly, I feel bad for you, Dalton. It's unfortunate. It's the first time I'm hearing that clip. I had heard some whispers about some things potentially coming up, but wow, I can't imagine. I know you put in a lot of work for your party as the chair, and so to hear folks talk about you like that in that way and try to blame you for something in that way, I would never want that to happen to Joseph Shepard, our chair. And so I feel for you all, and we certainly are here. I apologize for for that. Oh no, for you and what you have to go through, and for what the Whipple's family has to go through. I mean, him and his wife are amazing. They work so hard. They have 3 beautiful children. That is not something that someone should have to deal with. And I would hope that wouldn't happen to my spouse when he runs again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danielle. And I think it just shows that character counts, and we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. I appreciate the words, and I've been thinking about Mayor Whipple's family for the past year with all the allegations, and hopefully more truth comes to light and we can see the full story. And it's just very disappointing news. But thank you for the words. I appreciate it.
And Dalton, you have always been very straightforward about wanting to work across the aisle and, you know, get down and deal with things and not let political rhetoric get in the way. In some ways, it sounded like, as we were listening to that clip, they were trying to use that against you.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's not what you hear in politics normally. You usually hear people trying to stake out their positions on both sides, and I think people in America are tired of that. And I think we're at a dangerous place in America where, like Danielle said, we've let rhetoric, we've let what lengths will you do to get elected? And I think, unfortunately, that's come to Sedgwick County, and we all need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I think working across the aisle when things are applicable is a good thing, and I'm still going to stand by that. And fortunately, we have a very good relationship with the Sedgwick County Democrat Party, very good friends with Joseph Shepard, their chairman, and hopefully we can be an example to everybody else on how we should handle ourselves in the future.
And how do you see getting past this divisiveness that we are dealing with in the political world right now?
I think a lot of it is a conversation. I fully believe that every problem in the world, most problems in the world, can be solved over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. And I think when you see somebody's humanity first and their political ideology way down that line somewhere, that's the first step. And I think we just need to start seeing people as people again and having conversations with our neighbors, turn off social media, turn off the divisiveness, and just get back to working with one another.
All right. Well, this is obviously a story that is still developing. We are going to see how it develops in the next week or so. We do have some other things that we had already planned to talk about.
I'm excited.
Today. Yes, so we will move on to some of those, including a move toward once again trying to put into place a statewide mask mandate in Kansas. That an announcement from the governor this week. Cake's Eli Higgins explains why she's going after this mandate.
The public health experts and scientists have done their homework, and they're all saying the same thing.
Governor Laura Kelly sounded the alarm at a news conference Wednesday as COVID-19 cases continue to climb. But the main problem right now, she says, lies outside the big cities.
Currently, 2/3 of the state's COVID-19 cases lie outside the Wichita and Kansas City regions.
Governor Kelly says rural areas aren't following mask orders and says she's working toward a bipartisan statewide mask mandate. But doesn't Kansas already have a mask mandate? Well, yes and no. Executive Order 2052, which is still in place, does require masks in public statewide. However, when House Bill 2016 was passed in June, it gave each county the legal right to opt out of the governor's mask order, which is exactly what 90 of the state's 105 counties did. This is the gap Governor Kelly wants to close. But Sedgwick County Commissioner Michael O'Donnell says it shouldn't be up to her.
I truly hope that the governor allows the county commissions working as the Board of Health to make the best decisions for their counties, because it really shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all.
O'Donnell says his advice to commissioners in other counties is to listen to citizens, listen to experts, and make a decision that's best for keeping everyone safe. Eli Higgins, Cake News, on your side.
And Senate President Susan Wagle also pushing back at the governor's effort. She too saying that a one-size-fits-all COVID solution doesn't work for our diverse state. And Danielle, I'm going to start with you on this one. Trying to deal with this issue has become very much about politics. How do we move back past that?
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. Unfortunately, so many things are politicized, and we're seeing this great divide. At the end of the day, this is a public health issue, and we have to do what is best for the public health. I'm a mom, and I can't afford to take sick days off, and my children have to be able to be well to be in front of that computer screen, right? We're all in a very different space, and I think if we take the emotionally charged pieces out of it and look at it for what it is, I think we have to look at the science. I think we have to look at what our doctors, our scientists are saying. And instead of being political about it, can we maybe just look at it from the standpoint of what is best for public health and safety? Luckily for me, I do work at a job that I can take sick days. Many folks in our community cannot do that. No one has the time to catch the cold or even the flu. And so if we can consider doing a one-size-fits-all mask mandate, I think that's something that we should consider for the safety of all people, no matter how you feel about it. Let's pull back on whose side is on what side and take some time to look at it factually based. How can we keep each other from even getting the common cold at this time when folks are losing jobs and needing to keep the economy open and work together? We have the opportunity with this solution for right now. Let's use the solution that we have, because we don't necessarily have any medications and things like that. What we know is we can wear a mask. Let's wear the mask and keep our economy open and work together in ways that we can.
Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, I think, somebody that's, I had COVID this summer. And so I think having lived through that experience also kind of changes your mindset on it too. First and foremost, listen to scientists, listen to when people tell you that something is beneficial for the health. And, I do agree that we have a diverse state, we have diverse communities, and, what may work in Wichita may not work in Ford County. But we should all take this seriously, and I think it's unfortunate that we even have to issue a mandate. People should listen to the advice of scientists, listen to advice of healthcare practitioners, wear your mask. I have mine here. Make sure you're taking precautions to keep your family safe.
At the same time, though, it has become very much a political issue. Where do we go? How do we get it back on track? I mean, at what point did science become politics?
That's a very good question that I think all of us want an answer to. But I definitely think we need more people to step out and encourage people to do what doctors say and what scientists say. And so I think you need to have people step out and talk about the importance of mask wearing. And most recently, Chris Christie, once he had got COVID from the White House event, he's a very big proponent of mask wearing now, and has been on kind of the media circuit telling people the importance of wearing masks. And I think that's what needs to be done moving forward as well.
Okay. Well, you did mention the diversity of the state, and what works in one county may not work in another. If not masks, then what?
Yeah, and I think we should listen to scientists. I think social distancing, practices are very important. I think, wear a mask, social distance, make sure that you're keeping your family safe, make sure you're sanitizing, really do an above all approach. I don't think it's a one or another. Just because you wear a mask does not mean that protects you from everything. But I definitely think we should look at other options to keep people safe as well. And definitely just encourage people to support and the advice of scientists.
And Danielle, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think we have a number of folks that are doing campaigns. You have a group called the Black Alliance, particularly protecting folks that are your most vulnerable populations. And so making sure that that message is getting out there. We're seeing a number of folks in our own community showcasing the importance of wearing a mask. And so I think at the end of the day, what can we do for our neighbor? We talk about Midwest values. What does that mean? I thought Midwest values meant caring for each other, working together, caring for your neighbor. If we truly care about our neighbors, if we truly love our community, the least we could do is not politicize this issue and put on a mask. And even, let's say it's all wrong at the end of the day. Don't you want to be able to say, I stood up for my fellow Kansan at the least? So looking at it from that lens, that empathy that we can grow just a little bit to keep someone safe and healthy, why not try it?
Well, the debate over masks has gotten very ugly, especially here in Wichita this last week, leading to the arrest of a retired firefighter for threatening the mayor. Meredith Dowdy now faces 3 counts of criminal threats in Sedgwick County. Prosecutors say he sent a series of texts to Wichita City Councilman James Clendenin saying the mayor and all those who bankrupt us were a viable target for elimination for his push for a mask mandate here in Wichita, and asking for the mayor's address because he, quote, has a date with the hangman. The charges against Dowdy say he texted, the crimes being committed are those who are violating their oath. They should have their expletive throats slashed. Dowdy remains in jail on a $50,000 bond. A retired firefighter, the Wichita Eagle reports he has a reputation among acquaintances for anti-government views. His Subaru station wagon has hand-painted lettering on the windows saying, "Remember Waco" and "Zero constitutional force of law. Wake up, America." Phrases associated with far-right militants and QAnon, respectively. Wichita Mayor Brandon Whipple has made several appearances on national television since Dowdy's arrest. That includes CNN and MSNBC. Whipple told the Eagle his goal is to get out there and talk about how this is not reflective of Wichita as a whole. Now, is this kind of the natural extension of the debate and the increasing rhetoric we've seen about masking, or is there something more going on here?
Well, I think this goes with our conversation earlier. Our words matter, our rhetoric matters, and we see a wave of violent extremism crossing the entire United States, and unfortunately it's come here in Kansas as well. And I do think it ties with, people being built up after, they had a stay-at-home order, after they feel like people are infringing on their rights, they're not. And I think we need to have a clear display that this is vile, this is unacceptable, and I think every person in Wichita should stand strongly against any of these. And, this past week we've had 3 attempted, murders, or not attempted, but threatening of elected officials across the country, and it has to stop. And I think it stops with us and the way we present ourselves and the way we communicate with other people.
Danielle?
I agree. I mean, honestly, we're talking about our stances on wearing a mask. Is that going to result in us being threatened? And that's something that we have to take seriously. We have folks that are public figures. We have folks that they don't get paid enough to get threatened. No one should be threatened for taking their stance. And I think that there's a lot of fear mongering going on. We have to reassess. We have to be able to step back and say, enough is enough. This is too far. Right? It is up to the city council. It is up to the county. We have folks that are making decisions for us that we voted for. An email, a call will suffice. But how fearful does one have to be that a decision that they make publicly could result in them being killed? They have, folks have families. People should be able to sit in their elected seats and make decisions as best they can, as informed as they can, and not fear their life. And I think about a number of our elected officials that get threatening messages all the time. So while this has surfaced, it's not uncommon for our elected officials to get vitriol and hate in their emails, in their messages. So we really need to stop it, and we need to have some conversations with folks about the danger that is truly out there for our community.
And I find it interesting you bring that up, because I was also wanting to ask about what impact does this have on the willingness of elected officials to make some of these difficult calls?
I think the fear is real. I have this conversation with my spouse. Ultimately, they have to make these decisions, but that's something you have to think about your wife and kids when you vote. And is that what we want to have up at, at the city council, at the county level, our governor, any of those things, our school board members? I'm sure they've received a couple of not so nice emails as well, potentially threats. I can't speak on them per se, but I think we voted folks to be there to make these decisions. What they can do best is listen to their constituency, cast those votes, and do what's best for the greater good, for the community, for the public. But if they can't make those decisions because they'll be threatened and kidnapped, killed, that's a lot. That's a lot to have to stomach for a vote.
Very much so. Well, this is not the only story that's been making national and international news out of Kansas. Also, the Kansas Senate race. A New York Times poll out this week shows that the U.S. Senate race here in our state is still all tied up. The New York Times released its latest poll Thursday, showing Roger Marshall with 46% of support from likely voters, compared to Barbara Bollier's 42%. That 4-point lead is the same as the margin of error in the poll, which means either candidate could actually be in the lead. Only 6% of likely voters remained undecided. According to the Wichita Eagle, if this margin is accurate, it makes it the closest Senate contest in Kansas since 1974, when Senator Bob Dole eked out a narrow win over Democratic Representative Bill Roy. 2 years ago, the New York Times poll accurately predicted Democrat Sharice David's victory over incumbent Representative Kevin Yoder, and this week's poll numbers are in line with results seen in other polls in this race. I know that these days there is a tendency to kind of dismiss some polls, especially if they don't agree with your particular stance on things. But this is the first independently funded poll really that we've had recently in this race. Does that make it more believable?
Yeah, I think we heard this exact same dialogue. I had a chance to work for Senator Roberts back in 2014. We heard this exact same thing again and again. And what was really interesting was 42% is what Senator Boyer's polling at right now. That's exactly what Greg Orman got back in 2014. And so I definitely think, we heard this rhetoric before, and Senator Roberts was able to win by 11 percentage points. And I foresee the same thing happening on Election Day this time.
Interesting perspective there. Danielle, are you kind of seeing the same thing? Or I know that seeing the tightness in this race has certainly given a lot of Democrats in Kansas some hope.
Yes, this is where it goes down, Dalton. We are excited, especially if it's that margin of error, right? I think a lot of folks have questions about polls because we've seen some polling go awry in the last few years, but I think particularly with this independent poll, I think we're seeing some accuracy. I know a lot of work is being done. Dr. Boyer is out here and she's doing everything that she can, and it's really exciting to see options. We have some options and we have some great folks on the ticket. I think we're going to see something different November 3rd.
So who benefits the most from numbers like these, Danielle, besides the TV stations running all the campaign ads?
Right, I think it certainly helps the candidates to see how much harder do I need to work? What am I missing? What segment of the population do I need to get at? And so, polling can be a very strong tool, particularly when it's used well. And it lets them know, I know if I'm Dr. Boyer, I'm saying, I really need to hit it even harder. I know she's going hard, but as a candidate, when you see those numbers, if you see that you're trailing a little bit, or if you're right there, that's nothing but a nudge to take you that step forward. And I know that each candidate's going to continue to work extremely hard to get that vote on November 3rd. Folks are voting right now, so
yeah.
Data.
What we've seen across the country is an increase in voter turnout, and I think that's a great thing for our democracy. And so, the only poll that matters is the poll that's taken on Election Day, and we'll know in less than 11 days.
Well, I find it interesting you bring up an increase in voter turnout because that's what our next story touches on. It's not an error, but a threatening email over how you vote. And that's what some Americans have gotten in the last couple of weeks. The federal government is blaming Iran, and Kansas top election official says Kansas voters should be on the lookout for them too.
If it's going to happen in Missouri, if it's going to happen in Oklahoma, it's going to happen in Kansas simply because every state's a target.
FBI investigators Thursday briefing federal lawmakers on this series of emails that pretends to be from the right-wing group the Proud Boys with historic ties to violence.
Trump 2020!
Sent to Democrats, the emails demand they vote for Donald Trump as president and change their registration to Republican to show they've received the email or, quote, we will come after you. Kansas voters we spoke with say they wouldn't let an email like this stop them from going to the polls.
Oh, I can't say for anybody else, but it wouldn't scare me.
I think interference in an American election by any foreign body should be taken very seriously. I personally, if I received an email like that, I wouldn't be afraid, but that's me personally.
The Proud Boys denied having anything to do with the emails. Investigators say they actually came from Iran, sent to voters using information publicly available in election databases.
We are not going to tolerate foreign interference in our elections or any criminal activity that threatens the sanctity of your vote.
And Kansas Secretary of State Scott Schwab says while no one's reported the emails here in Kansas yet, it's likely just a matter of time before we see something like them here as well, because Kansas is also on the radar of nations like Iran, Russia, and China this year.
Obviously, they're tracking what the open Senate seats are, and they understand that Senator Pat Roberts is not running again, and it's a contested seat. It's nothing new that foreign nations would be interested in that. What's new is that some foreign nations are trying to influence the narrative. And that's when we don't want to be playing the puppet and just believe everything.
But he says you can help prevent the spread of messages like this.
And folks just need to report it. And then don't panic about it. And the most important thing you can do is go vote.
And don't panic, a big deal. I've gotten so many emails and calls over the last few weeks about every little thing. People are very concerned about this election.
Yeah, and we have amazing staff here at the Sedgwick County Election Office with Tabitha Lehman as their chair, or as the election commissioner. I'm very confident here in Sedgwick County and here in Kansas, we're going to have a smooth election. I echo the sentiments. Anything that's a resemblance of an foreign entity affecting American elections is an act of aggression and should be taken very seriously. And the reason they're getting involved is because they know your vote matters. And the best way that we can show the rest of the world, especially those trying to interfere in American elections, is go to vote and go to make sure your voice is heard in the ballot box.
Yeah. Well, and Danielle, I know a lot of this comes down to simple misinformation on the internet, and one of the best ways to get around that is simply not to look at the stuff. I've tried to clear out my feeds.
Right. Our Achilles heel is misinformation and disinformation. What we can do is educate ourselves and be prepared. Unfortunately, I do fear that someone might get this email and believe it, buy into it. And we need to do the exact opposite. Take the time to read what you need to, pay attention, make a plan. I think everyone's making a plan to vote. Get those advanced ballots in, make sure you're getting to the polls. There are no shortage of early voting places. It's as accessible as it can be this year. And we just have to know that. Last night, with the debate for U.S. Senate, we heard both candidates talk about how safe this election is and how you need to be able to turn in your ballots, make a plan, and vote. So even though they're on opposite ends of the aisle, they both spoke to the importance of voting and how safe it is in Kansas to be able to do so. So even in the midst of interference and attacks, we have to be responsible for making sure that we're as educated as we can, we're advocating for ourselves, and ultimately, we're casting those votes because the most important poll happens on November 3rd, and we'll get the most important data from that. So be informed, be educated, and do your duty.
Well, and certainly very interesting. Where we got some of those interviews was at WSU, where for the first time Sedgwick County is holding early voting sites on campuses.
Yeah, it's incredible. I know today they had it at Newman, and the use of Interest Bank Arena to get people to vote. I think the election office here is doing great things to encourage people to vote. It is safe. Get out and vote. I voted early, and looking forward to seeing the results on Election Day.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dalton, Danielle. You guys have been great. I hope to see you both back here soon. I would like to also thank our news partners at Cake News, the Wichita Eagle, and KSN News for sharing their materials with us. We'd like to know what you think or hear your ideas for discussion topics. Just email us at kansasweek@kpts.org. For now, stay safe and have a great week.
Southwest National Bank has proudly served Wichita and its surrounding communities for over 100 years. We are happy to support KPTS, Public Television for Kansas.